Nobody cares about you. Stoicism. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. How much of your life is spent worrying about what others think? Do you ever feel like you're carrying the weight of constant judgment or trapped in the endless pursuit of approval? The hard truth is this: nobody cares about you as much as you think they do, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's one of the most freeing realizations you can embrace. When you stop seeking validation and let go of the fear of judgment, you unlock the ability to live authentically, with a sense of purpose and inner peace. This idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and values, and to let go of everything else. Welcome to Stoic in Your Life, the channel where ancient wisdom meets modern challenges. In today's video, we'll explore why understanding the world's indifference can help you reclaim your peace of mind and guide you to a more meaningful life. What would your life look like if you stopped worrying about others' opinions and focused solely on your growth? Share your insights in the comments and let's embark on this journey together. Lesson 1. Why others' opinions don't matter. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. Have you ever caught yourself agonizing over what others think about you? Maybe it's a passing comment, a dismissive look, or even just silence that leaves you spiraling, wondering if you're enough. But here's the truth. Others' opinions of you are fleeting, shaped by their own biases, struggles, and insecurities, and they rarely carry the weight you assign to them. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in Meditations, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. It's an ironic yet profoundly human flaw. The Stoics understood that the key to freedom lies in letting go of this irrational need for external validation and focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and character. When you base your worth on the approval of others, you give them power over your happiness. This is not only unwise but also unsustainable. Most people are far too busy worrying about their own lives to deeply analyze yours. This realization is liberating because it means you can focus on living authentically, without fear of constant judgment. In today's social media-driven world, where likes, shares, and comments feel like a measure of self-worth, this Stoic principle is more relevant than ever. If you find yourself scrolling endlessly, chasing fleeting moments of validation, ask yourself, am I living according to my values or someone else's expectations? Remember, the opinions of others do not define you, but your actions and choices do. Marcus Aurelius advises, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This guidance shifts your attention from the external to the internal, encouraging you to measure yourself by your own moral compass. Picture a ship navigating stormy seas. If the captain were to steer the vessel based on the whims of every passing wave, the ship would never reach its destination. Similarly, your life's direction should not be dictated by the ever-changing tides of public opinion. Instead, root yourself in your principles and let them guide you, knowing that your inner strength will steady you even when external circumstances feel chaotic. This mindset also protects you from the toxicity of criticism and praise. Criticism often reflects more about the critic than the criticized, shaped by their personal biases and struggles. And praise? While it may feel good, it's just as unreliable, often fleeting and shallow. Seneca wisely noted, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This craving for external validation, whether it's approval or admiration, is a trap that leaves you perpetually dissatisfied, like chasing the horizon. By valuing your own judgment and striving to live virtuously, you build a fortress of self-respect that no external force can breach. In practical terms, applying this principle means setting boundaries and learning to say no to things that don't align with your values, even if it disappoints others. It means making peace with the fact that you cannot please everyone, and that's perfectly fine. Consider this. Would you rather live a life true to yourself and misunderstood by some, or live a life of pretense, endlessly chasing approval? The Stoic answer is clear. Choose authenticity, for it is the only path to lasting peace and fulfillment. Modern life tempts us to conform, but the courage to stand firm in our values is what defines true character. The lesson here is not to dismiss others entirely or live in isolation, but to understand the role of opinions in your life. Opinions are just that, opinions. They do not have the power to define you unless you grant them that power. Marcus Aurelius's insight: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Reminds us that the ultimate control lies within ourselves. By focusing on cultivating virtue, practicing resilience, and nurturing a mindset rooted in reason, you free yourself from the invisible chains of public perception. As you reflect on this, ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped worrying about what others think? How much time and energy could you reclaim to focus on your own goals and growth? The Stoics believed that a life well lived is one where you act with integrity, guided by reason and virtue, unshaken by the opinions of others. It is a life of inner freedom, where your peace of mind is no longer at the mercy of external validation. Lesson 2: Finding clarity in solitude. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the endless noise of modern life, emails pinging, phones buzzing, and the constant demands for your attention? It feels almost impossible to escape the chaos, doesn't it? Yet, solitude, which many of us avoid, holds the key to clarity and strength. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius would retreat into his own mind amidst the pressures of ruling an empire, finding calm and perspective in silence. Solitude isn't about isolation or loneliness. It's about creating space, to hear your own thoughts, to reflect, and to reconnect with your inner self. In a world that constantly pulls us outward, solitude pulls us inward, helping us to discover who we truly are and what truly matters. Think about this. When was the last time you sat quietly without distractions, without reaching for your phone, or seeking someone else's input? In our hyper-connected world, being alone often feels uncomfortable, but discomfort is where growth happens. Take, for example, a man juggling the responsibilities of work, family, and social expectations. He's constantly responding to others' needs, running on autopilot and losing sight of his own. One day, he takes an afternoon to sit alone in a quiet park, journal in hand. In that stillness, he finally asks himself, what do I really want? Am I living according to my values? This single moment of solitude becomes a turning point, helping him reprioritize his life. It's in these quiet moments that clarity emerges, not through noise, but through the absence of it. The Stoics teach us that solitude isn't an escape from life, but a necessary part of engaging with it meaningfully. Seneca, in his writings, spoke of withdrawing into oneself not as a form of avoidance but as a way to sharpen the mind and strengthen the soul. Solitude allows you to step back and see the bigger picture, like an artist who must periodically step away from their canvas to truly understand their work. It's in solitude that you can evaluate your goals, your actions, and the trajectory of your life without being influenced by external pressures. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to pause and think deeply? What might you learn about yourself if you did? Modern life, with its endless notifications and constant comparisons, makes us feel as though solitude is a luxury. But it's not. It's a necessity. Think about the story of Henry David Thoreau, who retreated to Walden Pond to live simply and reflect. He discovered that in simplicity, clarity arises. You don't have to leave everything behind to experience this clarity, though. Solitude can be found in small moments. A walk in the park, a quiet morning with a cup of coffee, or even turning off your phone for an hour. These small acts create space for your mind to breathe, for your thoughts to settle, and for you to reconnect with what truly matters. But let's not romanticize solitude as something effortless. It can be uncomfortable to sit with your own thoughts, especially when those thoughts challenge you or force you to confront difficult truths. Yet, this is the very reason solitude is powerful. It creates a space where you can be honest with yourself. It's not about running away from the world, but about preparing yourself to face it with renewed strength. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Solitude is where self-mastery begins, because it's where you learn to understand, accept, and guide yourself. In practical terms, solitude can be a tool for self-improvement. Start by carving out small moments of quiet in your day. Instead of reaching for your phone in the morning, sit in silence for 5 minutes and set an intention for the day. Take a walk without listening to music or podcasts and let your mind wander. Keep a journal to reflect on your thoughts and feelings. It doesn't have to be perfect, just honest. These small practices create a foundation for deeper clarity and resilience. How might your life change if you made time for solitude each day? What challenges might become clearer, and what solutions might reveal themselves in the quiet? The lesson here is simple yet profound. Solitude is not loneliness. It's the gift of connecting with yourself. In solitude, you find clarity, perspective, and the strength to navigate life's challenges. It's where you can align with your values, think deeply about your purpose, and renew your energy to face the world. The next time you feel overwhelmed, instead of seeking more noise or distraction, choose solitude. Let it be your retreat, your sanctuary, and your source of clarity. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have within you a refuge where you can retreat at any time and be yourself. Make use of that refuge and watch how it transforms your life. What clarity might you find if you embraced solitude today? The answer may surprise you. Lesson 3. Letting go of ego's illusions. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. Let's talk about the ego, that inner voice whispering that you are the center of the universe, the star of your own story. It can feel good, maybe even empowering at times, but here's the hard truth. The ego is a master of illusions, crafting a false narrative that often leads to disappointment, frustration, and unnecessary suffering. In reality, most people are too preoccupied with their own lives to notice yours. Yet the ego convinces you that every misstep, every failure, every little embarrassment is magnified in the eyes of others. Marcus Aurelius warned against this in Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He knew that ego ties us to things outside of our control, making us prisoners to the opinions and judgments of others, which often don't matter nearly as much as we think. Think about this. How often do you replay an awkward conversation in your head or overthink a decision you made, assuming everyone is analyzing it as much as you are? The reality is they're not. People are far too wrapped up in their own egos to dwell on your actions. This realization should be liberating, not disheartening. By letting go of the illusion that you are the focal point of everyone's attention, you free yourself from the unnecessary weight of self-consciousness. The ego wants you to believe that your worth is tied to recognition, status, or perfection. But the Stoics teach us that true worth comes from living in alignment with virtue, reason, and authenticity. How might your life change if you stopped seeking validation and started focusing On becoming the best version of yourself for your own sake? Consider this story. A man in his 40s, successful by most standards, spends years climbing the corporate ladder, obsessing over titles and accolades. Yet the higher he climbs, the more dissatisfied he feels. He realizes one day, during a quiet moment of reflection, that his relentless pursuit of recognition wasn't driven by his values but by his ego. He wasn't seeking purpose or fulfillment, he was seeking approval. This realization was a turning point. By shifting his focus from impressing others to doing meaningful work, he found the peace and satisfaction that had eluded him for years. This is the power of letting go of ego's illusions. It shifts your focus from external achievements to internal growth. The ego also traps us in a cycle of comparison. You might look at someone else's success and feel inadequate, thinking, "Why them and not me?" But Marcus Aurelius reminds us, do not be disturbed by the opinions of others or by what they say about you. When you compare yourself to others, you lose sight of your own unique journey. Everyone's path is different, shaped by circumstances, choices and challenges you may never see. Instead of wasting energy on envy or resentment, focus on what you can control, your own growth, effort, and integrity. What would happen if you stopped comparing yourself to others and instead measured success by your own standards? Modern life often feeds the ego's illusions through social media, where curated highlights create an endless cycle of comparison and validation seeking. Every post, every like, every comment feels like a reflection of your worth. But ask yourself, does your value as a person truly depend on how many likes you get or how others perceive you online? The Stoics teach us that external validation is fleeting and unreliable, like a shadow that disappears when the light shifts. Epictetus reminds us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let that sink in for a moment. True growth often requires letting go of the need to be admired, choosing instead to focus on what genuinely matters, your values, your actions, and your character. To overcome the ego's illusions, start by practicing humility. Humility doesn't mean belittling yourself. It means seeing yourself as you truly are, a part of the greater whole, no more or less important than anyone else. Reflect on your values and ask yourself if your decisions align with them, or if they're driven by a need to feed your ego. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow, rather than those who merely inflate your sense of self. Learn to take criticism constructively rather than personally, understanding that feedback is an opportunity for growth, not an attack on your worth. How often do you let your ego prevent you from accepting help or acknowledging your mistakes? What might you gain if you set the ego aside and embrace vulnerability? By letting go of the need to be seen as special, perfect, or superior, you can focus on what truly matters, living a life of purpose, growth, and virtue. The next time your ego whispers that you need to prove your worth to the world, remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Focus on your actions, not on how others perceive them. Free yourself from the ego's illusions, and you'll find a life of authenticity, peace and fulfillment waiting for you. Lesson 4. Embracing nature's indifference. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever stopped to think about how the natural world continues its course, completely indifferent to your successes, failures, or struggles? The sun rises whether you're having the best day of your life or the worst. The waves crash against the shore, oblivious to your worries about a promotion, a relationship, or a missed opportunity. This is not a dismissal of your challenges, but a profound lesson from Stoicism. Nature is indifferent, and understanding this truth can lead to a life of clarity, resilience, and inner peace. The Stoics believed that aligning ourselves with nature's flow, its rhythms, its impartiality, was the key to living a fulfilled life. Epictetus said it best, Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and you will find peace. Nature's indifference may feel unsettling at first. After all, doesn't it seem cold that the universe doesn't care about your personal story? But this indifference is liberating if you look closely. It means you are free from the impossible burden of trying to control what is beyond your reach. Take a moment to think about a storm. It doesn't rage out of anger or end out of mercy. It simply exists, obeying the laws of nature. Similarly, your struggles are not punishments, nor are your successes rewards. They are simply the natural outcomes of causes and effects. When you accept this, you realize that life is not happening to you. It's simply unfolding, and your role is to respond with wisdom and virtue. How much time and energy could you save if you stopped fighting against the inevitable and instead embraced it? Consider the story of a man who loses his job unexpectedly. Initially, he feels anger and despair, blaming the universe for his misfortune. But as he reflects, he recalls the Stoic principle of accepting what is outside of his control. He shifts his focus to what he can do, updating his skills, reconnecting with old colleagues, and exploring new opportunities. This perspective doesn't make the loss less painful, but it gives him clarity and purpose. The universe didn't conspire against him. It simply followed its indifferent course. His response, however, defines his character and his future. As Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." How might your life change if you stopped seeing obstacles as personal affronts and started viewing them as part of the natural order? In today's world, the idea of control is deeply ingrained in our culture. We are told that with enough effort, planning, and determination, we can achieve anything. While effort is crucial, the Stoics remind us that the outcomes are often beyond our grasp. Nature's indifference doesn't diminish your efforts, it clarifies their role. You plant seeds, but the rain, the soil, and the sun ultimately determine the harvest. Accepting this balance helps you focus on what truly matters, the quality of your actions. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What if, instead of obsessing over the uncontrollable, you redirected that energy toward mastering your own mind? This lesson is especially important in a world overwhelmed by uncertainty. Whether it's global events, economic fluctuations, or personal setbacks, the Stoic approach is to recognize that chaos and unpredictability are part of life's fabric. Modern conveniences may shield us from nature's harsher realities, but they cannot eliminate them. A power outage reminds you that nature still holds the upper hand. A missed flight or a sudden illness shows that control is often an illusion. Instead of resisting, the Stoic way is to adapt. When you accept the universe's indifference, you gain the freedom to respond thoughtfully and calmly, rather than react emotionally. What might happen if, instead of cursing the rain, you learned to dance in it? To embrace nature's indifference is also to embrace humility. You are not the center of the universe, and that is a beautiful thing. This realization doesn't diminish your worth. It places you within a larger context. You are a part of the whole, a thread in the vast tapestry of existence. Just as the ocean doesn't mourn a single wave that crashes, the universe doesn't mourn your failures, nor does it celebrate your victories. This perspective humbles you, reminding you that life is fleeting and precious. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this when he wrote, "Observe how ephemeral and worthless human things are." This isn't a call to despair, but to live with urgency and purpose, knowing that what you do with your brief time matters more than any external outcome. Practically, embracing nature's indifference means learning to focus on what you can influence: your choices, your attitudes, and your actions. Start by practicing gratitude for the things you do have control over. When faced with challenges, ask yourself, what is within my power here? and direct your energy accordingly. Reflect on setbacks not as punishments but as opportunities to grow. Instead of resisting change, see it as part of life's flow, like a river that carves new paths through the landscape. The Stoics understood that resisting nature is futile, but aligning with it brings peace and strength. What steps can you take today to align your life with this truth? Ultimately, the indifference of nature is not a source of fear but a wellspring of freedom. It frees you from the exhausting need to control the uncontrollable and reminds you to focus on living well, moment by moment. When you accept that the universe is indifferent, you are no longer its victim, you become its partner, moving with the current instead of against it. The lesson is clear. Peace is not found in bending the world to your will, but in bending your will to the world. So the next time life feels chaotic or unfair, remember the words of Epictetus. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. What clarity and strength might you discover if you let go of control and embrace the flow of life? The answer lies not in the universe, but within yourself. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Before we dive further, I'd like to take a moment to show my appreciation for you being here. It truly means a lot to have you as part of our community. If you feel inspired, share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Not sure what to say? No problem. Just drop a comment saying, "I am a newbie." If you're new to our journey, or "I am Stoic," if you've been walking this path with us for a while, your interaction isn't just a gesture, it's the fuel that keeps us going and growing together. Now, let's continue this journey of self-discovery and wisdom, shall we? Lesson 5. The truth. Others are busy with themselves. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Let's face it, how much time do you spend worrying about what others think of you? Perhaps you replay a mistake from yesterday, wondering if everyone noticed or cared, or you hesitate to take a risk because you fear judgment. But here's the liberating truth. Most people are far too busy with their own lives to spend much time thinking about yours. The Stoics understood this and taught that our preoccupation with others' opinions is one of the most significant sources of unnecessary suffering. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us, "You shouldn't give circumstances the power to rouse anger, for they don't care at all." This wisdom highlights that we often give far too much importance to the fleeting thoughts and perceptions of others. Yet those very people are likely focused on their own struggles, dreams, and insecurities. Consider a modern example. A man spends weeks agonizing over a work presentation, worried that his colleagues might think he's incompetent if he stumbles over a slide or forgets a key point. After the presentation, he feels crushed by the memory of a small error. Yet, what he doesn't realize is that most of his colleagues were barely paying attention. They were thinking about their own deadlines, their lunch plans, or even their weekend. This is the reality of human nature. We are all so wrapped up in our own lives that we rarely give others the attention we assume they're giving us. Doesn't this realization take a weight off your shoulders? What would you attempt if you knew that nobody was scrutinizing you as closely as you feared? This truth is not meant to diminish the importance of connection or relationships, but to free you from the invisible chains of self-consciousness. When you understand that others are more concerned with themselves, you gain the courage to live authentically. You stop hesitating out of fear and start acting in alignment with your own values and priorities. Seneca wisely noted, "He who is brave is free." Freedom comes from realizing that the judgment you dread often exists only in your imagination, and even when it does occur, it rarely carries the weight you believe it does. How many opportunities might you seize if you let go of the fear of being watched or judged? Modern life amplifies this fear, especially with social media constantly reminding us of what others might think. Every post, every comment, every photo feels like it's under a magnifying glass. But here's the reality. Most people scroll past your content without a second thought. Even those who engage do so briefly, often forgetting about it moments later as they move on to the next post. The Stoics would remind us that our time and energy are far too valuable to waste on these fleeting interactions. Instead, they urge us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our intentions, and our character. Marcus Aurelius emphasized this when he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Are you spending your time worrying about what others might think? Or are you using it to become the person you aspire to be? Think about how freeing it is to understand that people are too preoccupied with their own problems to dwell on yours. Picture a busy commuter train filled with people staring at their phones, lost in thought, or focused on their next destination. Each person has their own story, their own challenges, their own dreams. This is life. Everyone is living in their own world. Even when someone notices you, their thoughts are often fleeting and superficial, like a passing breeze. How much energy do you waste on what is essentially a momentary glance in someone else's mind? What if you redirected that energy toward achieving your goals or building the life you want? By accepting that others are busy with themselves, you also learn to be kinder to yourself. You realize that perfection is not only unattainable but unnecessary. The world does not demand that you be flawless. It barely notices. This doesn't mean you should stop striving for excellence, but that your efforts should come from a desire to grow and improve for your own sake, not to meet the imagined expectations of others. Ask yourself, are you living to impress others, or are you living a life that feels true to who you are? When you answer honestly, you may find that much of your stress and anxiety stems from trying to meet standards that don't truly matter. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. Let go of the fear of judgment and embrace the truth that others are busy living their own lives. When you free yourself from this fear, you gain the courage to live authentically, to take risks, and to focus on what truly matters. The next time you feel paralyzed by the thought of what others might think, remind yourself of Seneca's words. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Stop craving approval and start valuing the freedom to be yourself. What would your life look like if you stopped worrying about the opinions of others and focused entirely on your own growth and happiness? The answer might surprise you, and it's entirely within your reach. Lesson 6. Why seeking approval is a fool's errand. If you live for people's approval, you will die by their rejection. Cornelius Lindsay. Let's talk about the exhausting and endless pursuit of approval. Have you ever noticed how much energy you spend worrying about whether others like you, respect you, or agree with your choices? The truth is, seeking approval is a fool's errand because no matter how much validation you receive, it's never enough. And it often comes at the cost of your own happiness and authenticity. The Stoics understood this deeply, teaching that the opinions of others are beyond our control and therefore not worth chasing. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly in Meditations. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Why do we place so much value on the fleeting judgments of others, who are themselves preoccupied with their own lives and struggles? When you seek approval, you hand over your peace of mind to others, making their opinions the ruler of your happiness. But here's the paradox. Approval is temporary and subjective, often given for reasons that have little to do with who you truly are. A colleague may compliment your work, not because they genuinely value it, but because it aligns with their agenda. A friend might praise you only to criticize you behind your back. The pursuit of approval ties your sense of worth to these fragile and unreliable external sources. Why give people such power over your emotions? Epictetus wisely observed, "Who is your master? He who controls that which you seek or avoid." If approval is your goal, then anyone who offers or withholds it becomes your master. Is this how you want to live? Think about this. Have you ever tried to please everyone around you? It's like running on a treadmill that never stops. You might satisfy one person, but someone else will disapprove. You may work hard to fit in, but the crowd you're trying to impress shifts its standards. Modern life, with its social media likes and fleeting comments, magnifies this futility. You could post a photo, receive hundreds of likes, and yet still feel empty. Why? Because external validation is not a substitute for self-acceptance. Instead of chasing approval, the Stoics teach us to seek internal stability by living according to our values and principles. When you align your actions with your beliefs, you no longer need others to affirm your worth. You already know who you are. Consider the story of a man who spends years building a successful career, chasing titles and accolades to earn the respect of his peers. On the surface, he achieves everything he set out to do, yet he feels unfulfilled. Why? Because his accomplishments were never truly for himself. They were for the approval of others. The Stoics would urge this man to pause and ask, "What do I actually value? Am I living for myself or for the applause of the crowd?" The realization that he had been seeking approval rather than meaning becomes a turning point, allowing him to redefine his goals and pursue a life of authenticity. How? Many of us are living someone else's version of success because we're too afraid to disappoint or face criticism. Approval seeking also blinds us to the truth that people's opinions are fleeting and often irrelevant. Today, someone might praise you for a decision, only to criticize that same choice tomorrow if it no longer serves their interests. Seneca reminds us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." When you crave approval, you are perpetually poor, needing more and more to feel satisfied. The antidote is not to reject people altogether, but to detach from their opinions as a source of your identity. What if, instead of seeking approval, you sought alignment with your own values? What if you measured success not by applause but by integrity? Living without chasing approval doesn't mean isolating yourself or ignoring constructive feedback. It means understanding the difference between feedback that helps you grow and the superficial validation that keeps you stuck. Feedback rooted in truth can sharpen you, but validation rooted in pleasing others can erode your sense of self. Think about your own life. How often do you say yes to something just to avoid conflict or rejection? How often do you hold back your true opinions because you fear being disliked? The Stoics teach us that freedom begins where the need for approval ends. When you stop needing others to agree with you, you find the courage to speak your mind, take risks, and live authentically. The lesson here is clear. Seeking approval is like chasing the wind. You'll never catch it, and the chase will exhaust you. Instead, turn inward and focus on what you can control: your actions, your intentions, and your character. The next time you feel the urge to seek approval, ask yourself, am I acting from a place of authenticity, or am I trying to please someone else? When you choose authenticity, you choose freedom. Lesson 7. Breaking free from fear. He who fears death will never do anything worth of a man who is alive. Seneca. Fear is an invisible cage that traps so many of us. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of the unknown, these emotions can hold you back from living the life you truly want. But here's the thing. Fear is often just a shadow, an exaggerated projection of what could go wrong rather than what actually will. The Stoics understood this well and taught that most of our fears stem not from reality, but from our imagination. Marcus Aurelius urged us to remember, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This insight reminds us that fear is a choice, not a destiny, and when you learn to master it, you can unlock the freedom to live fully. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you hesitated to speak up, take a risk, or try something new because of fear? Perhaps you wanted to start a business but stopped because you feared failure, or you avoided asking someone out because you feared rejection. Fear often feels so real in the moment, but have you ever noticed how when you finally confront the thing you're afraid of, it's rarely as bad as you imagined? Fear is a magnifying glass. It enlarges the possibility of failure and makes it seem insurmountable. Yet when you face it head-on, you often find that it shrinks into something manageable. The question is, how long will you let fear dictate your choices before you decide to take back control? The Stoics believe that fear is rooted in our attachment to things outside of our control. For example, you fear losing your job because you equate it with losing your identity or stability. But what if instead you saw every loss as an opportunity to rebuild, refocus, and grow? Seneca advised, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," which means that the stories we tell ourselves about what might go wrong are often worse than reality itself. Modern life only amplifies these fears. The constant barrage of news, social media comparisons, and societal expectations can make you feel like failure is catastrophic. But ask yourself this: what's the worst that could happen? And if it did, would you not have the strength to rebuild? The Stoics teach us that the true danger lies not in failure, but in letting fear paralyze you from taking action. Consider the story of a man who dreams of starting his own business. He works a stable job but feels unfulfilled, always wondering, what if I pursued my passion? Yet he's afraid of financial insecurity, of judgment, of failure. Years pass and the dream fades, not because it wasn't possible, but because fear kept him from trying. Then one day he sees a friend take a similar risk, face setbacks, and still succeed. This realization stirs something in him, the acknowledgement that fear stole his time and potential. What opportunities might you be missing because fear whispers, "You can't"? The Stoics would remind you that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. How might your life change if you chose action over hesitation? Breaking free from fear starts with shifting your mindset. Instead of seeing fear as a roadblock, see it as a guide. Fear often points to what matters most: your dreams, your goals, your values. If you fear public speaking, it might be because you care about sharing your ideas. If you fear failure in a project, it's likely because success means so much to you. Recognizing this allows you to use fear as fuel rather than letting it become an anchor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." What are you afraid of starting, and how might it feel to take that first step? Practically speaking, overcoming fear requires action, even small ones. Start by identifying your fear and asking yourself what you can control. Can you prepare better? Seek advice. Take a smaller risk to build confidence. Each step forward diminishes fear's grip, showing you that you are more capable than you believed. Surround yourself with people who encourage you to grow rather than feed your fears. Learn to accept that failure is part of life, not the end of it. As the Stoics teach, failure is often the best teacher. What lessons could you learn from facing your fears today? At its core, fear is a signal, not a verdict. It's a reminder that you are stepping into the unknown, and that's where growth happens. Instead of letting fear dictate your actions, let it challenge you to rise higher. Life is too short to let fear hold you back from pursuing what truly matters. The Stoics understood that bravery is not about being fearless. It's about acting in the face of fear and trusting in your ability to adapt and overcome. The next time you feel fear creeping in, ask yourself, is this fear protecting me? Or is it limiting me? When you learn to distinguish between the two, you gain the power to break free from fear's illusions and embrace a life of courage and purpose. The ultimate lesson here is simple but transformative. Fear only has as much power as you give it. By recognizing it, understanding its roots and choosing to act anyway, you reclaim your life from its grip. As Seneca reminds us, "Throw me to the wolves, and I will return leading the pack." You are capable of far more than you realize, and the only thing standing between you and your potential is the decision to move forward. What step will you take today to confront your fears and reclaim your freedom? The answer lies not in avoiding fear, but in meeting it with strength and determination. If you've made it this far, you're embracing the Stoic path of strength and inner peace. Drop a comment saying, "I am unshaken," to show your commitment to living authentically and letting go of external noise. Stay tuned. This journey of self-mastery is just beginning. Lesson 8. The virtue of being over being seen. In a world where appearances often overshadow substance, the pursuit of being seen, of gaining recognition, admiration, and validation, can easily become an obsession. We want others to notice, us to acknowledge our success, to admire what we've achieved, but the Stoics remind us that this is a hollow pursuit. True fulfillment lies not in how others perceive you, but in the quiet, steady work of becoming someone virtuous, someone of substance. The virtue of being rather than being seen means focusing on your character, actions, and values instead of chasing the fleeting approval of others. When you stop worrying about how you are perceived and start caring about who you truly are, you unlock a deeper, more authentic sense of purpose. But why is this so hard to do in a culture that thrives on visibility and validation? Let's start with this question. How much of your time is spent trying to impress others? Maybe it's the car you drive, the social media posts you curate, or the way you phrase your accomplishments in conversations. It's easy to fall into the trap of shaping your life around being noticed. But the truth is, this never brings lasting satisfaction. Recognition is fleeting, and admiration often comes with conditions. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius warned us, "The approval of such men who do not even stand well in their own eyes has no value for him." Why invest so much energy in impressing people whose opinions are as fragile and fickle as the wind? Instead, focus on what is permanent, your integrity, your character, and the quiet work of living a meaningful life. Consider the story of a man who spends years climbing the corporate ladder, driven by a desire to be seen as successful. He buys expensive suits, posts photos from luxurious vacations, and boasts about his promotions. On the surface, he appears to have it all, but inside, he feels empty, disconnected from his values, and unsure of who he really is. It's only when he faces a personal crisis, a health scare, or the loss of someone close, that he begins to reevaluate. He realizes that the image he worked so hard to create was hollow, and the things that truly matter, his relationships, his inner peace, his purpose, were neglected. How often do we chase appearances only to realize they are illusions that distract us from what really matters? What might you discover about yourself if you stopped focusing on being seen and started focusing on being? Modern life, with its emphasis on social media and constant comparison, makes this challenge even harder. Every post, every comment, every like feels like a measure of worth. But is it? The Stoics would argue that it's not. Seneca reminded us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." When you crave attention and approval, you become poor in spirit, always seeking more but never feeling fulfilled. Social media may amplify this problem, but the solution lies within. What if you stopped posting for validation and started acting with purpose even if nobody noticed? What if your life was a masterpiece you created for yourself, not for an audience? The freedom you would gain is immeasurable. Living for being rather than being seen also means embracing humility. True greatness doesn't need applause. Think about the people you admire most, not because of their Instagram followers or flashy lifestyles, but because of their quiet strength, kindness, or wisdom. These are the people who inspire us, not because they seek attention, but because they embody values we respect. When you focus on being rather than being seen, you become this kind of person. Someone who makes an impact not by shouting for recognition, but by living with integrity. Ask yourself, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? One built on superficial appearances or one grounded in substance and meaning? Breaking free from the need to be seen starts with small, intentional steps. Focus on your actions, not on how they will be perceived. If you're helping someone, do it without expecting praise. If you're working on a goal, pursue it for the sake of growth, not recognition. Marcus Aurelius urged us to do every act of your life as though it were the last. How would your life change if you acted from a place of sincerity, without worrying about how others might interpret your choices? You'd find that the pursuit of being, rather than being seen, brings a sense of peace and fulfillment that no amount of applause can match. The lesson here is simple but profound. The virtue of being is infinitely more valuable than the illusion of being seen. When you stop seeking validation and start living for your values, you find freedom. The opinions of others lose their grip on you, and you gain the confidence to live authentically. As Epictetus said, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. The next time you're tempted to chase attention or approval, ask yourself, is this who I want to be, or is this who I want others to think I am? The answer will guide you toward the path of substance over superficiality, and the rewards of that path are far greater than any fleeting applause. What steps can you take today to focus on being instead of being seen? The choice, and the freedom it brings, is entirely yours. Lesson 9. Legacy is temporary. Focus on now. Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever found yourself thinking about how you'll be remembered after you're gone? Maybe you worry about leaving a legacy, a lasting mark on the world that proves your life mattered. It's a noble idea, but the Stoics remind us that legacy is fleeting and beyond our control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors and philosophers, understood this truth deeply. Despite his power and wisdom, he knew that time would eventually erase even the most remarkable achievements. He wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity, but not because the world will remember. It's because what you do now shapes who you are." The pursuit of legacy can trap you in the future, distracting you from the only moment that truly exists, the present. Why waste your life worrying about how others might remember you when you could use that energy to live fully and virtuously today? Consider how much time we spend chasing accomplishments for the sake of recognition. A man works tirelessly to build a business not because it fulfills him, but because he believes it will secure his name in the annals of success. Yet, when he reaches his goal, he feels a hollow emptiness, realizing that the accolades he sought do little to satisfy his soul. Why? Because legacy is a future-focused illusion, a shadow that dissolves over time. Think about it. How many great figures of the past have been forgotten? Their once brilliant achievements now just a footnote in history. Even the most iconic names are remembered by only a fraction of humanity, and those memories too will fade. Does this mean you shouldn't aim high or accomplish great things? Absolutely not. It means you should focus on doing them for the right reasons, for the growth, the meaning, and the good they bring to your life now, not for how they might be viewed in some distant, unknowable future. Modern life only amplifies the pressure to leave a legacy. Social media creates a constant stream of comparison, where people document their achievements, seeking likes and shares as a kind of immortality. But let's be honest. How many posts do you actually remember from a year ago, a month ago, or even last week? The Stoics would remind us that chasing legacy through fleeting digital impressions is an even greater illusion. Seneca said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." The key is not in how much you accomplish, but in how intentionally you live. Are you truly living, or are you merely trying to impress others? How would your perspective shift if you stopped worrying about being remembered and started focusing on being present? This isn't to say that we shouldn't strive to make a positive impact. The Stoics believed in contributing to the greater good and acting with integrity. However, they taught that the value of those actions lies in the doing, not in the recognition. Think of someone who dedicates their life to helping others, quietly and without fanfare. Their work might never be widely celebrated, but does that make it any less meaningful? In fact, the lack of a spotlight often makes their actions purer, driven by virtue rather than ego. What would your life look like if you shifted your focus from seeking applause to living authentically, guided by your principles? Breaking free from the obsession with legacy starts with embracing the present moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This doesn't mean ignoring the future entirely, but rather not letting it dominate your thoughts. You can still plan, work hard, and aim high, but don't let those efforts steal the joy and meaning of today. Think about the small, seemingly insignificant moments that make life rich. A quiet morning with coffee, a kind word shared with a friend, or the satisfaction of completing a task well. These moments may not be remembered by history, but they are the essence of life. What would happen if you paid more attention to these moments instead of constantly looking ahead? Focusing on the now also means letting go of the fear of being forgotten. It's natural to want your life to have meaning, but that meaning doesn't come from how others perceive you after you're gone. It comes from how you live today. Legacy is like a ripple in a pond, beautiful but temporary. The Stoics teach us to find fulfillment in our actions themselves, not in their perceived permanence. Epictetus reminds us, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control." Legacy is external, unpredictable, and fleeting. The present moment, however, is entirely within your grasp. The ultimate lesson here is both humbling and freeing. Stop chasing immortality through your achievements and focus on living a life of purpose, virtue, and authenticity. When you live fully in the present, your actions naturally create a meaningful impact, whether they are remembered or not. So ask yourself, what would you do differently if you knew that legacy didn't matter? Would you be kinder, more courageous, more focused on what truly brings you joy? The answer lies in shifting your perspective from the distant future to the immediate now. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Embrace this privilege and let your legacy take care of itself. Lesson 10. Finding strength in self-sufficiency. Let's now talk about a source of strength that is often overlooked: self-sufficiency. In a world that constantly pushes us to seek external validation, approval, and support, the idea of standing strong on your own 2 feet might seem daunting, but the Stoics teach us that true strength comes not from relying on others, but from cultivating a resilient inner self. Self-sufficiency isn't about cutting yourself off from the world or rejecting help. It's about developing the emotional, mental, and spiritual tools to navigate life's challenges independently. When you understand that your peace of mind comes from within and not from external circumstances, you unlock a power that no one can take away from you. Why let your happiness be at the mercy of others when you can learn to control it yourself? Think about how often we look to others to fill the gaps in our lives. We rely on a partner to make us feel loved, a boss to validate our work, or friends to to reassure us that we're on the right path. While connections are vital, the Stoics remind us that putting too much weight on external support makes us vulnerable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When you depend on others to define your worth or guide your happiness, you give away that power." What would happen if you shifted your focus inward and began building a foundation of self-sufficiency? Wouldn't life feel a little less uncertain? A little less fragile? Modern life often complicates this lesson. Social media encourages us to measure our lives against the curated highlights of others, creating a constant need for external affirmation. How many times have you felt your mood shift based on the number of likes or comments you receive? The Stoics would urge you to remember that these external markers are fleeting and ultimately insignificant. Epictetus advised, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, then your life will flow well." This doesn't mean isolating yourself, but accepting that true contentment arises from how you respond to life, not from how others perceive it. Are you building your sense of self on a foundation that can crumble at any moment? Or are you creating a fortress within that no one can touch? Consider the story of a man who faced a sudden job loss. Initially, he was devastated, not just because of the financial implications, but because his identity was tied to his role at work. He realized he had spent years relying on his job title for self-worth. But rather than sink into despair, he began rebuilding, learning new skills, setting personal goals, and reconnecting with the things that truly mattered to him. This process wasn't easy, but it taught him a powerful lesson. His value wasn't tied to what others thought of him or the position he held. He found strength in his ability to adapt and grow on his own terms. What would happen if you took setbacks as opportunities to develop self-reliance instead of letting them define you? Self-sufficiency also means learning to face discomfort and uncertainty with courage. Life will inevitably throw challenges your way: loss, failure, rejection. The Stoics teach us that while we can't control these events, we can control how we respond to them. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." When you learn to rely on yourself, you stop fearing the unknown because you trust your ability to handle it. This doesn't mean you never feel fear or doubt, but it means you face those feelings with the confidence that you are capable of enduring and overcoming them. How often do you avoid challenges because you don't trust yourself to succeed? What might you achieve if you leaned into those challenges instead? Building self-sufficiency doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with small, intentional steps. Begin by identifying areas where you rely too heavily on external validation or support. Is it your job, your relationships, or even your social status? Ask yourself how you can start shifting that reliance inward. Practice making decisions based on your own values rather than what others might think. Develop routines that ground you, whether it's journaling, meditation, or physical exercise. Surround yourself with people who encourage your independence rather than feeding your need for approval. And most importantly, learn to appreciate your own company. The ability to be content alone is a cornerstone of self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." When you cultivate self-sufficiency, you free yourself from the roller coaster of external validation and create a life built on resilience and inner peace. This doesn't mean rejecting relationships or community. It means entering them from a place of strength rather than need. The next time you feel yourself leaning too heavily on external sources for happiness or stability, pause and ask yourself, what can I do to find that strength within? As Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. Take the steps today to become that master, and you'll find that the freedom and strength you've been searching for were within you all along. What would your life look like if you embraced self-sufficiency? The answer lies in your hands. As we wrap up today's video, let's reflect on the empowering truth that Stoicism offers. The opinions of others and the world's indifference are beyond your control, and placing your happiness in them only leads to unnecessary suffering. Instead, turn inward, focus on your values, and live a life of virtue and authenticity. Embracing this mindset frees you to cultivate resilience and inner tranquility, even in the face of challenges. At Stoic in Your Life, our goal is to inspire you to take these timeless principles and apply them to your daily journey. So, how can you start living more authentically today? Share your thoughts or a step you'll take in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you're making Stoicism part of your life. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs this reminder. Until next time, stay strong and live virtuously.